Hi, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Navs Effect podcast. I am your host, Naveen Ganglani. We are 2 days away from Game 3 to the epic conclusion of the UAAP Season 87 Men's Basketball Finals between De La Salle University and University of the Philippines. So we're going to preview that. We're going to have All-Star Magazine Simon Redoblado joining us to preview what promises to be an electrifying conclusion to this UAAP season. Can't wait to get into it. A lot to discuss. But first, a quick word from our sponsor and friends over at Fin Cotton.
I want to say congratulations on all your success.
Congrats to Finn Cotton Sneakers.
Para sa lahat ng mga kababayan natin dyan, Disenyong Pinoy.
Disenyo ng Pinoy para sa Pinoy.
Dinisenyo ng Pinoy para sa Pinoy.
Dinisenyo ng Pinoy para sa Pinoy.
Disenyong Pinoy para sa mga Pinoy.
One of the best seller nila sa Fin Cotton, napaka-quality.
Napakasarap po sa paa. Halos parang natutulog lang yung mga hinlalaki ko sa paa. The best. Fin Cotton is the best policy. Nobody's perfect.
Okay, we are back. Thank you, of course, to our friends over at Fin Cotton. Simon Redoblado is here with us. So let's get right to it, Simon, because it is a Friday night, and I know many of us are pondering what might possibly happen in Game 3 of the finals, but at the same time, we're trying to enjoy the second to last night of peace before the war begins again on Sunday, because it's felt like a war. Here's the mindset I believe both teams are at, or if I had to surmise what they're thinking right now. Okay, so if I'm LaSalle, I'm thinking we were dead in the water. That game was done. We haven't played our brand of basketball. We haven't played our identity through 2 games. But here we are. The series is tied some way, somehow. Call it the heart of a champion if you want to. Call it undying will. Call it unwavering spirit. Whatever you call it. We found a way to pull it off. We found a way to snatch victory from the claws of defeat. Given all of that, given how we haven't played to our standard, it's 1 game. Everything is out of the window. Stats, previous matchups, whatever feelings you might have, all of that is out of the window. And all you got to do is play 40 minutes of solid basketball, do what you've been doing all season, and you go back-to-back for the first time since 2001. And if I'm UP, I'm thinking, okay, we played 80 minutes against these guys with our complete lineup, particularly with both Kagulangan and QMB in the roster. And for the better part of those 80 minutes, we have outplayed DLSU. Now, I know that the first halves of both games, LaSalle stayed in the lead, but the second half is always more significant than the first half to me because it's about how you close, not how you start. And for the better part of both second halves, minus for a few late fourth quarter minutes in Game 2, UP has outplayed DLSU, particularly when QMB is on the floor. In this series, including Game 2, when QMB is on the floor, they have outscored DLSU. And one of the issues they've faced has been what happens when QMB leaves the floor. But when that big guy is on the court, now I don't expect Gold to play him all 40 minutes. I think that might be risking it a little bit. But overall, QMB played 30 minutes in Game 2. In Game 1, he played 34. UP has outscored by LaSalle by 19 points in those minutes that QMB has been on the floor. So if I'm UP, I'm saying, with our complete lineup, with our big man there, we have been the better team. And we just need to reset our minds, forget about Game 2. It's over and done with. And now we move on to Game 3 and do what we've been doing. And if we do what we've been doing on both sides of the floor, we should come out of this series as champions. Of course, there are the haunting memories of the last 2 years, blowing Game 1 and then trying to secure the series in game 2, failing to do so 3 straight times now. Well, technically 4 straight times, but this time maybe we can prevent it from happening, another loss in game 3. I feel both teams should be confident entering this game. If you had to give one team a slight advantage in terms of who might be a little more confident over the other, warranted confidence, who would you give the edge to?
Um, we've spent all season now just speculating about what these players, what these teams, what these coaches could be thinking, but we've come to the point of no speculation. Um, I honestly cannot put myself in the frame of mind, in the emotional state, and the psychological condition of anyone from the UP or the LaSalle camp. And I feel like it's very appropriate because every game starts with a 0-0 scoreboard. I think game 3 this Sunday will essentially be a 0-0, and whoever outplays the other for that final 40 minutes of this glorious season 87 men's basketball tournament, that's who comes out on top. Now, if I had to nitpick certain statistics, and like you said, I think we throw all the stats out the window on Sunday. But if we had to be technical, one last time now, it's just one last time. Okay, I look at rebounds. UP has been out rebounded by LaSalle so far in the first 2 games. I look at free throws, particularly end game free throws. No explanation needed. And I look at KQ. That's not a stat. Kevin Kembao is the name of a player, but I think at this point we can call him a stat. Okay. So at the end of the day, is KQ going to be contained, particularly in the most crucial stretch? I think if we simplify it, if we had to boil it down to 3 points, who controls the boards, who makes free throws down the stretch, and will KQ be contained, especially in the crucial stretch? That's how we boil down game 3.
That's how we boil down game 3. You're right. Here's the thing to me. Can UP stop KQ when it matters most? Because what game 2 showed me was that you could limit him for the better part of 3 quarters because the defense was working on him. There was a stretch there in the third period where he had 2 consecutive turnovers, and I asked myself, is this UP defense actually finally breaking him? Because he can't seem to solve it. But then he's able to do what, honestly, and this is going to sound, superficial maybe to some people, but he has the ability to do what legends do, which is flip the script and transcend everything to will his team to victory, to will himself to put his team in the position to win the game. Can UP stop KQ when it matters most late in the fourth quarter? Is there an answer to that question? Because after game 1, and we should mention, part of the reason why KQ went on that run at the end of game 2 was after Raylan Torres left the game, right? But after game 1, we were also saying maybe Jacob Baila's an answer. Maybe not to stop him, but to limit him. But can they do that for game 3? Because we know who the ball is going to go to down the stretch. We knew who the ball was going to go to for LaSalle down the stretch in game 2. And it didn't matter. Step back 3-pointer over QMB. When he sees an open teammate, Mike Phillips gets the ball to him right away. Do you feel UP can stop him when it matters most late in the fourth quarter?
I'll answer your question now with another question because I might have missed something. All right, I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but was there an injury report on Jacob Baila in game 2?
None.
Was there anything on him being hurt?
None. I'm wondering why he played just less than 5 minutes. I think that's
Then-
what you're getting to.
All right, so I don't know if I was subconsciously hoping that you would give us some insider info on, he was a bit banged up after game 1, after that yeoman's job that he did on KQ. So now, since you're giving me that information, or since you're giving me that no answer basically on whether Baila was injured or not, I have to scratch my head because why didn't Coach Gold go back to that well? Now, I was trying to rationalize it during that game. I said, okay, Abadiano was humming. Torres was having a pretty good showing as well. And I think they were trying to get Harold going down the stretch to finally unlock him, perhaps be that finishing kick that they needed to put game two away. But it's not rocket science. To answer your initial question, yes, UP did find the solution in game one when Baila guarded Kiambao for much of the second half. And there were other factors that went into KQ putting up just 1 point in that entire second half. But Baila has to take the lion's share of that particular credit, right? So it boggles my mind why Baila was not even given the chance. It's one thing if Jacob was placed on KQ like right from the get-go, and we wrote about this in my column earlier this week. When was Coach Gold going to place Baila on KQ? So I think he guarded KQ early part of the or latter part of the first quarter, but I didn't see too many instances, actually far too few instances in which Baila was given the opportunity to defend Kembao. If we check the stats, Baila played how many minutes
5
in
minutes,
game
59
two?
seconds.
That
So
is
6 minutes,
crazy.
essentially.
That
But
is
Simon,
crazy.
just to play devil's advocate here, because I'm looking at the minutes distribution. Kagulangan 37 minutes 21 seconds, Lopez 34:16, Abadiano 31:09, QMB 30:20, Alarcon 24:46. So if you're gonna pinpoint one person who maybe should have played less minutes, probably Alarcon, right? Because
Yeah.
4 points, although he was how many points?
5.
5 points, but plus 4, 2 of 7 shooting. Can I play devil's advocate here and say maybe, okay, in retrospect, perhaps they should have played Baila, sorry, but some people call him Baila. But it was working. They were up 7 with less than 5 minutes to go. It was working. The formula did work, right?
I will not disagree with you. The formula was working in the third quarter, but in the fourth quarter, as sure as the sun rises in the east and the sun sets in the west, LaSalle is going to go to their two-time MVP. So now you put Baila there to be
He
the
was there for the
finisher in
first
terms
shot,
of the
though.
stopping.
He was there for the first shot that KQ hit, right? The step back 3.
Yeah, and I believe KQ drew a foul on him as well. But
They went away from it.
You forgive and you forget. If you're Coach Gold, I'm sorry to have to say this, but at that point, you forgive and you forget, and you remember that this guy was working his tail off in the second half of game one, and he did an effective job. So
So what happens is 2 minutes, 3 seconds left. KQ hits the 3-pointer, 73-71. Guess what happens in 2 minutes, 1 second left? Harold Alarcon comes in for Jacob Baila.
it boggles my mind. And here's another thing, Nabs. So if we're gonna nitpick, actually this isn't even nitpicking. This is fundamental defense that has to take effect. Okay, people have to be smarter this time around. Raylan Torres went under a Mike Phillips screen when trying to guard KQ during that crucial stretch in which
Oh my
KQ
gosh.
hit outside shots. And I was screaming, why are you going under? We've been through this before, and this is exactly how Kiambao killed UP in Game 3 of last season's finals. We should be better than that at this point. We should be doing our homework, and we should have the wherewithal. We should have the mental composure to not commit mistakes like that, because mistakes like that, as we've seen, cost us a championship.
I want you to put on your UP cap here for a second. Give me what the sentiments are towards Francis Lopez right now. Because
All right.
because in the first quarter, he was keeping the team alive. Mike Phillips was going at QMB unlike anyone I've ever seen go at QMB. I think it's fair to say Mike Phillips won that first half against QMB.
He did.
But Francis was keeping UP alive. 12 points in the first period. That was the best quarter I've seen both Mike and Francis ever play in the game of UAP basketball. I'll tell you what though, Simon. In the back of my mind, and you were probably thinking the same, as an analyst, from an analyst perspective, in the back of my mind, I was thinking, in game one, part of the reason why UP won was because Francis wasn't forcing the offense. He was picking his spots, choosing when to attack, while letting the focal point be JD and QMB.
That's right.
So when he was on fire to start game two, I was asking myself, is this going to be something that comes back to hurt UP late in game two? Will we see Francis? Because he's done this before where when he's hot early, he takes it upon himself to provide the offense late in games as well. And for a moment there, it looked like it might work because UP went up 7 when Francis drove against KQ and scored on a reverse layup, which was a smart ploy because it was empty. Everyone else went weak side. Francis had KQ one-on-one, beat him in a foot race. But then later in the game, he tried doing the same, attacking. And kudos to him because he did get to the free throw line 2 times. The second time he got to the free throw line was after getting both KQ and I think it was Mike up in the air for a fake and going to the foul line. But after he missed the first 2 free throws there in the fourth quarter, when he went to the line for those second 2, I'm like, he might make 1, but I don't think he's making 2. And he ended up missing 2. What was your sentiments going on? And you know what was his biggest mistake that no one really noticed? I had a meeting earlier with a good friend of mine for lunch, one of my quote-unquote sources. So we discussed a few things, including game 2 of the finals. And he immediately pointed out the same thing that I noticed about that game 2. You know what Francis's biggest mistake was?
What?
Okay. I'll run it back for you. KQ hits the 3 over QMB. LaSalle goes up by 1. And LaSalle, their crowd is in pandemonium. Were you there live? Did you watch game 2 live?
I was Team Bahay during that time.
Team
Nabs.
Bahay. Okay. I was going to make a Jared Bahay joke, but not the time and place. And what happens after KQ hits that big 3 and all the momentum is suddenly in LaSalle side? QMB, simple, turns, and by the way, turns away from the help defense of Phillips. Basically a hook shot. Might as well have been a sky hook. Yep. It goes all the way up and it's coming down. And I'm like, oh my God, this is perfectly falling through the net. And it does swish. What happens the next possession? EJ Goliena, LaSalle's unsung hero so far in this series. Cross screen underneath. And LaSalle does this so many times in a game that this should be one of the first things on top of the scouting report of their opponents. Small guy cross screens for Mike.
Yeah.
QMB is guarding Mike. Francis is guarding Goliena. And a lot of times when you do that cross screen, ideally you switch. Right? Francis saw it too late or did not see it. And by the time he realized what was happening, Mike was open. KQ got Mike the ball. Easy 2 points. And that turned out to be the final shot of the game. The final basket of the game. And right away, if you watch the replay, you'll see QMB has his hands out like that, basically asking Francis, where were you? That was your assignment. So, am I confident Francis can bounce back for game 3? I think so. And they need him to bounce back for game 3 because he has been very important in this series. There's a reason why Coach Gold is playing him a lot of minutes. They need him. From your perspective, from the UP side of things, how confident are you in him bouncing back and helping UP win game 3? Or are you of the mindset that maybe you should pull him back a little bit and see if someone else can help you?
I'll answer that on behalf of not only Francis. Am I confident that Francis will bounce back? I'll answer that actually collectively. Am I confident that UP will bounce back? So just to put things into perspective, this exact sequence in which UP had a sizable lead in the fourth quarter and LaSalle, through the extraordinary hands, once again, of Kevin Kembao, wrested the lead away from them. This happened in Game 3 last season, and there was obviously no more chance for UP to redeem themselves. What I realize is this exact same script plays out in Game 2 of this year's finals. So now, the question in my mind is, does UP have what it takes to learn from its Game 2 mistakes and bounce back in Game 3? And I say yes because now they see it with eyes wide open. Coach Gold and Coach Tom won't let them make those same blunders, especially those down the stretch. They won't let UP make those mistakes once again in game 3. Now, you were asking about the sentiments of the UP community towards Francis. There was plenty of vitriol, and that was expected. Myself included, I was mad at
You know it's
Francis.
vitriol when you're being compared to Aljon Mariano.
I was actually waiting for someone to go all the way back to 1995, the Houston Rockets versus the Orlando Magic,
Oh,
and
Nick
one
Anderson.
Mr. Nick Anderson missed 4 free throws that could
That
have
would have
won
been
them that
that
game
would
and
have
perhaps changed the complexion of that series, which the Rockets eventually ended in a sweep. But
that would have been
um,
okay if AQ and Mike didn't miss their own free throws because they were choking from the free throw line as well.
you
Nick
know,
Anderson was all over the place.
the spirit of Nick Anderson is alive and well, and the man is not even deceased. Much love to you, Mr. Anderson. Okay, so both teams definitely these are kids. I mean, napakatito naman natin to say that, Nabs, but these are kids. These are kids donning the jerseys of their respective universities at the college level, and the pressure is unreal. The emotions unfathomable. So
Absolutely.
another thing
Absolutely.
perhaps that we could consider, Navs, just to simplify everything, the team that will stay most composed for the entirety of 40 minutes or maybe even maybe even beyond regulation, the team that stays most composed throughout the game takes the title.
Who do you trust more to be more composed down the stretch?
Both of them. Both of them. I'd say both of them. Both of them, I mean, both of these have won championships in recent years. Of course, LaSalle is the defending champions, but I think they have enough veterans. Both teams have enough veterans. Looking at Kagulangan, Abadiano, Alarcon on the UP side, and then of course the championship core of LaSalle still very much intact with KQ, with Mike, and those very talented wings. Their coaches are superb, and their crowds are next level. So, yeah, 0-0 once again, my friend.
Have you gotten any peaceful night of sleep since Wednesday night?
Are we really gonna go there? Okay. Yeah. I admit having to need to listen to a funny podcast or two after that game 2 loss. Perhaps to just take my mind off things. But
Should have
you know
watched
what?
Gladiator too.
You know what, Navs? Let's get more spiritual or philosophical here for a second. Uh, this is basketball, and you always say, "What do we love most about this sport?" This series teaches us that basketball is life and life is basketball. No matter how disappointing, and both teams have been through this over the past decades, and I say decades in plural. No matter how bad you play, this game, this round, this Final Four, this finals, this season, there will always be another opportunity. And really, the only question going through their minds should be, well, you have your next shot. Are you going to throw away your shot? Or are you finally going to take that crown that you believe is rightfully yours? That's basketball. That's life. That's career. That's finance. That's family life. That's married life. Next play, next game mentality. Let's get it.
I'm just waiting for a player to hit a big shot and tell the crowd, "Are you not entertained?" To be honest,
Big,
why has
big
no one
fact.
ever done that? We need people to realize some culture, man, some gladiator culture. Um, maybe Francis will hit a big shot and go to the LaSalle crowd and be like, "Are you not entertained?"
For the love of Guillermo Tolentino, I seriously hope he doesn't. Stay focused. 40 minutes. 1 second of gloating could cost you, man.
Oh, for
Stay
sure, for
focused.
sure. So we're not gonna get into the Raylan Torres situation. It is what it is. He's not suspended. The rule of why he's not suspended has been described, and honestly, it's been one of the most toxic topics over the last 24 hours. And I just honestly do not have the energy to get into that. And besides, it's game 3, everything on the line. Might as well have both teams complete, lay it all out in the court, and just determine who is the best team from there and who deserves the right to be called champions. Although I do think both teams are worthy of being noted as champions, but only one, as we know, will take home the actual, the golden trophy compared to the silver one. I don't think there's even is there a silver trophy? I know there's silver medals, so we'll do medals. Look, if I'm LaSalle too, here's what I'm saying. They haven't gotten that makalalag David outside shooting game yet, right? KQ and Mike have carried them the first two games. So if you're LaSalle, you're thinking, if we get like a game where Makalalag and David combine for 4 or 5 3-pointers in a close game, in a 5-6 point game down the stretch, that's what you're looking at. And you're telling yourself, that could end up being the difference. Now, if you're UP, and Simon, we've talked about this. Why does UP always struggle from 3 against LaSalle? They won game 1 despite struggling from 3. Game 2, they outshot LaSalle from 3-point range. UP shot, looking at the stats now, 9 out of 30. LaSalle was 6 out of 21. So do I think UP will shoot well again from 3? I don't think they'll shoot as good as game 2, but I don't think it will be as bad as game 1. Who can be the unsung hero for UP? That's my first question for you. And number 2, there's something I want to ask. Do you feel there are too many, and I want to be respectful here, but I also want to get your actual basketball perspective on this. Do you feel that coaching staff's a little crowded for UP sometimes when you look at the bench and you see how there are a lot of coaches there? What do you feel about that?
I wish I knew more about the contributions of the other revered, venerated coaches. I know Egay Macaraya just joined us this season. Of course, we all know that Coach Tom Chua is the one hollering at them whenever they have missed defensive assignments. He's the defensive coordinator extraordinaire. Christian Luanzon, I've seen this many times live and on TV. Coach Gold will take forever to get from the dugout to the bench to start the game right before tip-off. And it's actually Coach Christian reminding all of them about their initial sets before tip-off, okay? But I'm pretty sure all of them chip in their own way, whether offense, defense, player development, whatever the case may be. I'm sure Coach Gold respects all of their inputs. Now, you were asking about the unsung heroes. In Game 1 of Season 86 Finals, a man named Harold Alarcon played one of the best games of his career. And let me put out this challenge. I don't know if he listens. Hey, our platform is going by the day and by the week, Nab. So who knows? Harold might be hearing this UP graduates unsolicited take and piece of advice and pep talk. Harold, quite frankly, has been missing in action in this final series. And if I were Harold, I'm looking myself in the mirror tonight and tomorrow night, and I'm saying, what do I have left? Is this how I'm going to end my season 87? Just a tiny blip on the stat sheet? Or am I actually going to take over a game and help JD win in his final year, help QMB win in his only year, perhaps put himself in a position to have the suitors at the professional level line up? So, yes, Mr. Alarcon, we are looking for you. I hope you show up on Sunday.
JD Kagulangan through 2 games, and he's played actually really well, except the shooting from the field. 10 out of 32. If UP wants to win this game, and I know they obviously want to win this game, but if they are to win this game, I feel like they need to find a way to get the ball to QMB more. Now, whether that's attacking the rim and forcing LaSalle to send help defense like Mike so QMB can gather offensive boards and get easy putback points, or whether that's even telling him, okay, QMB, post them up, make them guard you. That is the key for me when it comes to UP. Part of it was LaSalle's defense, but just 4 shot attempts for QMB is too little, especially when you consider Kagulangan and Lopez took 32 combined. Kagulangan, Lopez, Abadiano took 45 field goal attempts combined. QMB took 4 attempts and made all 4 shots. He is a weapon unlike anything I've ever seen in the UAP before. Maybe Ange Kwame. I'm talking about in terms of local, okay, not FSA. He is like, if LaSalle has, it's so funny how both these teams are in the finals and their FSAs are essentially afterthoughts, right? If LaSalle has Mike Phillips, a local who plays like an FSA, UPS QMB, a local who plays like an FSA, I started asking myself, is QMB better than Malik Diouf? That's a question for another day, but it warrants the discussion. It warrants. I think QMB is a better free throw shooter than Malik. I
Yeah,
might give
he is.
him a little bit of an edge because of that.
He has better hands.
Yeah, and they're the same defensively, in my opinion. I think
Malik
Malik's a
has a
bet
slight edge there. Yeah.
Malik is a better rim runner, but I think QMB is a better post up guy.
Yeah, most definitely.
You need to get this guy involved if you're UP. He is
But
so good. He is too good not to get him involved more than he did in game 2. He took in game 1, he had 11 shot attempts, made 7, and you saw in the second half how dominant UP was as they imposed their will in the paint with QMB leading the way.
you're talking about coaching staff, Nabs. I fully expected Topex Robinson to tell his boys in game 2, do not let that guy get as many easy touches as he got in game 1, because in game 1, particularly down the stretch when QMB was getting hot, LaSalle was still doing single coverage and they weren't double teaming him frequently enough, right? So in game 2, I thought that was more prominent. Mas kinukuyog nila si QMB. They made yung mga low post entry sa kanya na they made that more difficult. So and again, Harold trying to throw it in using a bounce pass with an awkward trajectory that the LaSalle guards would eventually get, so turnover. Yeah, that's why QMB has just a measly number of field goal attempts, because in the first place, hirap siyang kunin yung bola. Now, I expect LaSalle to do more of the same kasi, syempre, weapon nga, tulad ng sinabi mo. So, if they contain Q, that forces UP to try to beat LaSalle from the perimeter, and we all know who is better in the perimeter in the elimination round between LaSalle and UP. But I thought they found a workaround it kasi si JD naman yung nag-init from the perimeter, particularly in that strong third quarter run. And lastly, before I give the floor back to you, UP has consistently won the third quarter. If they want to secure this win on Sunday, they better not take their foot off the gas in any quarter, actually, but most especially that third quarter. But I mean, for the love of God, don't choke the fourth quarter either. I'm pretty sure they won't do that on Sunday.
Here's 2 things I think UP has to do better. And by the way, if there's one thing in the grassroots level we have to do, it's to teach guards how to throw post entry passes way better. And now and in the future. One is LaSalle is essentially telling the UP guards, we are gonna trap you off these ball screens. We're gonna send our version of Godzilla, I guess, on the defensive end, and Mike Phillips to crowd your space and to tip the ball and to delay you as much as possible by trapping and hedging and forcing the smaller guards of UP to throw passes. The guards need to find a way to get the ball out of their hands quicker so they can find QMB on the short roll. Because if you find a way to get the ball to QMB in the short roll, suddenly you're looking at a 4-on-3 advantage in offense. That's number 1. Number 2, they need to make the LaSalle players beat them off the dribble. And so far, it's kind of worked because the outside shooting of LaSalle has been off. But they need to funnel the LaSalle players, particularly Kiambao and David and the other guys. And this goes back to what you said earlier about going under screens. They need to be more aware of that. They need to funnel these guys to the paint where QMB can defend them. And that is how UP controls the pace. On the flip side, if you're LaSalle, if you keep moving that ball around, because LaSalle had more field goals that were assisted than UP did in game 2, which I thought was actually low-key prominent in that contest. If LaSalle can find a way to keep moving the ball around and get the UP defense scrambling left, right, that could lead to the open outside shots. Because here's the thing, Simon. If LaSalle is hot from 3 early in the first half, and when I say hot from 3, I don't mean just 1 or 2 players. I mean like as a team. That is danger to UP for me. Do you agree?
I think the key to unlocking that, Navs, would be KQ transitioning more to the playmaking role than having to carry the scoring burden too much. So stats tell us in game 1, KQ had 1 assist. In game 2, KQ had 2 assists. So I think it's a matter of him not throwing too many of those pinpoint passes. The other thing is him recognizing the big stage and him trusting himself above all the others, quite frankly. So, titignan din natin yan. Kasi kapag nagsimula na siyang mag-distribute, if he starts to distribute to the rock and shooters like Josh David, CJ Austria, Makalalag, Goliana even, once they get more active, the LaSalle offense gets more potent. I think yun naman din on the flip side though, I think that's what Kagulangan has been able to do impeccably over the past 2 games kasi tingin ko mas na balance niya yung scoring tsaka yung facilitating, and he's actually all the while doing it while averaging more points per game than QMB, who was actually my pick to win Finals MVP if UP goes on to take this series. It's looking like JD might have a solid case, and it will, if it does get it, then it will bode well for his own prospects moving forward in the future. Here's a question I have for you, Nabs. Late game situation. What do both of these teams do in those dramatic moments in the last 2 minutes, in the last 90 or the last 60 seconds? What do you think they would be scrambling to do?
See, I like that you brought that up because I think LaSalle has the advantage in that regard. And I don't mean like a big advantage, a slight advantage. And that slight advantage is we know where the ball is going to. We are sending the ball to one of the greatest players the UAP has ever seen before. And whether he passes, finds an open teammate, or hits a step back 3, or drives in, we know where the ball is going to. For UP, theoretically, it's supposed to be JD. But that's when Mike Phillips and his defensive prowess comes in on those traps. And that can delay the UP offense. So technically, who is it after JD? Is it QMB? Yes, ideally. But as the old saying in basketball is, or goes, can you get the ball inside to the hands of the big men? Right? Because QMB
Which leaves us
to Alarcon and Abadiano.
No.
Or Lopez.
It leads us to the guy, and my wife pointed this out to me. It leads us to the guy who had to go to the arms of his coach because he was so distraught after missing those free throws. Game 3 this Sunday, Navs, will indelibly shape Francis Lopez's legacy. Let me just say that so that the clip to be aggregated will be properly done. Okay, Game 3 this Sunday will indelibly shape Francis Lopez's legacy in the UAAP, whether he chooses to leave after the season or whether he chooses to stay behind to play with a friend named Ray Remogat. Francis Lopez can basically solidify his standing in UAAP lore if he does all the right things at the right time this Sunday. And of course, standing in his way, standing in the way of the Fighting Maroons, is the player that I called him in my column. And that's Carl Kevin Kiambao. Lopez versus Phillips, QMB versus Phillips, Kagulangan versus Kiambao. So many storylines, Navs. I can't wait for Sunday.
Before I ask your prediction, I want to ask you something. Is there extra, I wouldn't say pressure, but is there extra motivation there for UP to get the championship this year? Because next season, LaSalle is going to be as loaded as they are this season. Maybe they don't have the quote unquote franchise player, but they're going to be the most loaded team in the UAP next season. And UP is losing QMB and JD. I think entering next season, LaSalle has an advantage talent wise. Does that give UP extra motivation to get it done this year?
I think they're mature enough to not look that far ahead, but I think they have the perspective to look at what's happened over the past 3 seasons. We reached the mountaintop in season 84, and ever since then, we've been at the doorstep, but we haven't been inside the house. That to me is motivation enough for them to get it. And Harold's talked about this. Gusto niyang manalo para kay Maymay. It's that simple. His friend, his buddy, someone he's gone to war with throughout this entire time. They basically both emerged in that season 84 series. So very personal. So yeah, very personal.
What's your prediction? Who wins game 3?
I predict with my heart, brother.
So it's UP. By how many points?
It doesn't matter to me as long as we get the win.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was our last preview podcast episode of UAP Season 87. Simon, thank you so much for your time. Best of luck. Thanks to everybody who tuned in. Next time we do a podcast episode, we will have a UAP champion.
Navs, one post-credit scene, please. And I messaged you about this, and I feel I have to give this guy a shout-out. Quick story. After that Game 1 victory by UP, which my wife and I watched live in Araneta, we were going to cross the street so that we could get back to our car. This boy, I think he was of college age, was with 2 Tito-looking figures, all of them clad in LaSalle merchandise, right? All right. So after that game 1 victory by UP, I was like, okay, I need to be wary. But this guy approaches me, and this boy says, "Excuse me, are you part of Levine's podcast?" And I'm like, "Yes." And he said, "I like your takes." And I'm like, "Okay, thank you." And I shook his hand and I said, "So you're not gonna stab me now?" So the boy and his Tito companions laugh. I don't know if one of them was his father, but I have to give a shout out to him because I asked him his name afterwards. Alfonso of DLSU, thank you so much for showing love. Thank you so much for showing support. Your 2 companions as well had some pretty nice things to say. And Navs, that is validation that what we're doing here in the Navs effect is reaching an audience, my friend.
Absolutely. Thank you to our audience. It's been such a thrilling UAP season. There's more to come though, so I'll give my final thank yous after the last few episodes. But yeah, honestly, it's been really heartwarming. We got a special appearance there from my very special wife, who is answering a phone call. I guess we have visitors right now, or pizza. Either way, Simon, good evening to you. Good night, and I'll see you after game 3.
Thank you, Navs. UP fight.